This film begins by showing a beautiful woman named Mo Shi being forced to marry a wealthy man named Shen Muhan. One night, Muhan visits Shi to spend an intimate evening together. But Muhan seems to be under the influence of alcohol because he ends up mentioning another woman's name while they are being intimate. Some time later, Shi appears depressed because she has just lost her unborn baby. Not only did she lose the unborn baby, but Shi also becomes more frustrated because Muhan refuses to acknowledge the unborn baby as his child. Shortly after, a woman named Jing Jing explains to Shi that Muhan had a vasectomy before he married Shi, and because of that Muhan does not believe Shi when she says she is pregnant with his child. Additionally, Jing Jing also adds that she not only disposed of Shi's baby but also her mother. Upon learning this, Shi tries to demand an explanation from Jing Jing about her reasons for doing all that, but Jing Jing replies that it is time for Shi to die. Then pushes her off the roof of a skyscraper. Not long after, Shi thinks she is dead, but miraculously, she returns to the past, precisely to her wedding day 2 years ago. Realizing she has the opportunity to fix the situation, Shi decides to escape from her marriage and visits her mother's grave. Shortly after, Muhan approaches Shi and asks her to marry him immediately, but Shi refuses because she knows Muhan loves another woman. Because Shi refuses to leave, Muhan then orders his men to drag Shi away from the place. Upon arriving at their wedding ceremony location, Shi remembers the painful past when Muhan left her at their wedding. At that time, Shi, who deeply loved Muhan, tried to win him over so he could love her. In the present, when they are both at their wedding altar, Muhan suddenly receives a phone call from someone. At that moment, Shi immediately realizes that the phone call is very important because in the past, Muhan would leave her right after receiving that phone call. But surprisingly, this time Muhan ends the phone call and instructs his assistant to handle the matter while he continues their wedding ceremony. Upon seeing this, Shi was suddenly surprised and told Muhan to go after the woman he loves. However, Muhan firmly stated that he would still marry Shi even if the marriage meant nothing to him. Muhan also tried to forcibly kiss Shi to convince her that she is the only bride he desires. Shortly afterward, Muhan's sister, Mu Shui, arrived and immediately pushed Shi because she did not approve of their marriage. At the same time, Jing Jing, who came with Mu Shui, approached Muhan and asked for his help. Mu Shui then explained that Jing Jing had been treated roughly by thugs on their way to the wedding and asked Muhan to teach those thugs a lesson. When seeing Jing Jing pretending to be kind in front of Muhan, Shi suddenly felt disgusted and intended to leave. Surprisingly, Muhan quickly grabbed Shi's arm, even lifting her in front of everyone. Muhan then instructed his assistant to handle the thugs while he took Shi away from the place. Muhan then took Shi to his bedroom and intended to spend the night intimately with her. At that moment, Shi asked Muhan about the possibility of them having a child, but Muhan doubted it. Shi then remembered the past when she told Muhan about her pregnancy. At that time, Shi seemed excited and asked Muhan about the gender of the baby they wanted. However, instead of feeling happy about becoming a father, Muhan appeared furious and firmly told Shi that he had a vasectomy before marrying her, so it was impossible for them to have children. At that moment, Muhan suspected that Shi had cheated on him and demanded an explanation from her. Muhan even pushed Shi, causing her to have a miscarriage. In the present, Shi told Muhan to ask the doctor who performed the vasectomy on him, and it turned out that the doctor was Jing Jing. Upon hearing Shi's words, Muhan began to wonder if she was telling the truth. The following days, Muhan's mother, Mrs. Shen, visited Shi to give her a letter. Shi, who had been reliving her past, immediately stored the letter as she already knew its contents. At that moment, seeing Shi quickly stash away the letter without opening it made Mrs. Shen suspicious, so she snatched the letter and opened it without Shi's permission. After that, Mrs. Shen appeared surprised because the letter was sent by a man named Pei Zishen, who gifted a house to Shi. Although Mrs. Shen seemed angry with her, Shi didn't care at all and stated that Muhan could divorce her anytime. However, Muhan had no intention of divorcing Shi anytime soon, so Shi asked for an allowance of 2 million yuan from Muhan every month. Surprisingly, Muhan immediately agreed to his wife's request and gave her a check worth 2 million yuan. The next day, Shi was seen inspecting the location where she intended to rebuild her mother's boutique, which was her dream. Unexpectedly, Shi ran into her childhood friend named Zishen, who came to see her at Shi's request. Because Zishen was a fairly famous actor, his presence there immediately drew attention, so Zishen invited Shi to leave the place, avoiding the pursuit of his fans. After that, Shi explained that she intended to ask Zishen for help to uncover secrets about her father, Mo Qishan, and her mother. Upon learning this, Zishen asked Shi for her reasons, and Shi explained that she wanted to reclaim everything her mother owned. which had been taken by Mo Qishan and his family all this time. Zishan, who knew Shi very well and understood all the suffering she had endured, immediately agreed to help her. Zishan even promised to help Shi rebuild her mother's boutique. And Shi responded that she would make Zishan a brand ambassador once she had successfully established her company and had her own brand. When Zishan asked about the name of her brand, Shi remembered her past when her father kicked her out of the house. Because Shi intended to seek revenge, she named her brand Persephone, inspired by the goddess of Greek mythology who always punished the evil. During their conversation, Muhan suddenly appeared with the intention of dragging Shi away from the place. At that moment, Shi remembered the past when Muhan forced her to serve his client, Mr. Shang, for business purposes. Shi, who no longer wanted to be exploited by Muhan, deliberately made Muhan jealous by embracing Zishan. Shi even threatened to divorce Muhan if he forced her to serve Mr. Shang. Upon hearing this, Muhan appeared surprised that Shi knew his plans, but he seemed not to care much about it and then pulled Shi away from Zishan. Surprisingly, Zishan then defended Shi in front of Muhan, and firmly stated to Muhan that he would always protect Shi. Muhan, knowing that Zishan actually had romantic feelings for Shi, then asked Shi if she also loved Zishan. However, Shi refused to answer the question, stating that Muhan would never believe her even if she told the truth. Amidst their argument, Muhan suddenly received a phone call from his assistant informing him that someone had falsified his medical records. Additionally, his assistant also found evidence of Shi's affair with Zishan, which instantly enraged Muhan and confronted Shi. However, Shi denied it and insisted that she didn't cheat with Zishan. Nevertheless, Shi realized that Muhan didn't believe her words. So she assumed that the scandal might be a scenario deliberately created by Muhan to ruin Zishan's career and confine her at home. Before leaving, Shi told Zishan that the woman he kissed in the photo might be the supporting actress in his film and someone deliberately edited the photo to create a scandal of their affair. Therefore, Shi warned Zishan to be careful because his close ones might have betrayed him. At the same time, Muhan told Shi that he would investigate the affair scandal, and if Shi was proven not to have cheated, he would restore her reputation in public. After that, Zishan tried to chase after Shi who was walking away from the place, but a female fan blocked him because she wanted his autograph and a photo with him. Shortly after, Zishan managed to catch up with Shi who had just left the restaurant, but he saw Shi fall in front of the restaurant and assumed that Muhan had pushed her. Enraged, Zishan confronted Muhan thinking he had hurt Shi, but Shi stopped Zishan and defended Muhan by saying that she had slipped while Muhan was just trying to help her. Upon arriving home, Muhan immediately asked Shi about someone who had falsified his medical records. However, before Shi could explain anything to Muhan, Mrs. Shen appeared and told Muhan that Jing Jing had cooked something for him. Shi, who knew that Jing Jing was only pretending to be nice in front of Muhan and his mother, openly confronted Jing Jing about Muhan's fake medical records because of Jing Jing was the doctor who performed the operation. At that moment, Jing Jing appeared panicked as Shi tried to expose her lies, especially when Shi said that Jing Jing had deliberately manipulated Muhan to torture her. On the other hand, Muhan asked Jing Jing to hand over his medical records the next day, but Jing Jing made excuses, saying that his medical records might have been lost because Muhan had a vasectomy several years ago. Upon hearing that, Shi commented that from the beginning Jing Jing probably didn't have the medical records because Jing Jing might never have performed a vasectomy on Muhan. At that moment, Jing Jing tried to divert the conversation by mentioning her sister's death and blaming Shi for her sister's death. Meanwhile, Mrs. Shen, upon hearing that her son had a vasectomy, was startled, but Muhan quickly took his mother out of the room as he had kept it a secret from her. After Muhan and Mrs. Shen left the room, Jing Jing cornered Shi by saying that Shi was the one who planned the car accident that ultimately killed Jing Jing's sister, who was also Shi's half-sister. Shortly after, Muhan, who had just entered the room, was shocked to hear this and immediately demanded an explanation from Shi. However, she denied being the mastermind who planned the car accident and asserted that she didn't have enough money to execute such a plan that killed Jing Jing's sister. Additionally, Shi also explained that her father kicked her out after he married Jing Jing's mother, but Jing Jing claimed that Shi's mother was a wealthy woman. So Shi must have had a lot of money. Jing Jing then turned to Muhan and said that Shi was kicked out of the house because her father found her seducing an adult man at a bar when she was still a high school girl. Shortly afterward, Mrs. Shen entered the room and appeared angry with her son for insisting on maintaining his marriage to Shi, who was a troublemaker and brought bad luck to their family. Instead of feeling offended and sad after Mrs. Shen told her son to divorce her, Shi happily told Muhan to end their marriage immediately because no one approved of the marriage. It turns out, Shuri had knew from the beginning that Muhan married her because she resembled Muhan's first love, Mo Sha, who was her half-sister. At that moment, Shuri said that Muhan should have married Jing Jing because Jing Jing, who was Sha's biological sister, resembled Sha more. And Jing Jing was also deeply in love with Muhan. Shuri continued that Jing Jing wouldn't hesitate to play dirty and collaborate with Mrs. Shen to remove her from Muhan's life. Upon hearing that, Mrs. Shen became furious and slapped Shuri, but surprisingly, Muhan defended Shuri and firmly told his mother to respect Shuri as his wife. While in the room, Shuri remembered the past when Muhan saved her from thugs who tried to harass her. In the present, Shuri looked embarrassed and closed her eyes as Muhan emerged from the bathroom shirtless. They were about to spend intimate time together, but Shuri said she needed to take birth control pills first to avoid pregnancy. Knowing that he might not have had a vasectomy, Muhan said he would take care of their child if Shuri became pregnant. However, Shuri then asked Muhan what he would do if he had indeed had a vasectomy and she had been a prostitute trying to take advantage of him all along. Upon hearing this, Muhan said that he needed to prove that first and seemed unwilling to discuss it for the time being. The following days, Muhan secretly watched Shuri, who was inspecting the location for her mother's boutique. His assistant then informed him that Shuri really liked the location but the rent was too high. Upon learning that, Muhan instructed his assistant to handle the issue. At the same time, Shuri suddenly received a phone call from the landlord who agreed to lower the rent. And Shuri seemed so excited because she finally found a suitable location for her mother's boutique as she wished. Shortly afterward, Shuri received a text message from Mushui asking her to come to the hotel to pick up Muhan, who was drunk. After reading the text message, Shuri immediately remembered the past when Mushui intentionally trapped her and Zishan in a hotel room to create a scandal of their affair. Not wanting to fall into the trap for the second time, Shuri called Zishan and hurried to the hotel. At the same time, Muhan, who was secretly spying on Shuri, received a phone call from Mushui saying that Shuri was currently in a hotel room with Zishan. At that moment, Muhan actually knew that his sister was lying because he had been watching Shuri all along. However, Muhan decided to go to the hotel to find out what Mushui was planning. Upon arrival, Muhan and the journalists found an actress who was about to rest with her manager. The manager immediately annoyed because the journalists suddenly barged into the room. After that, she scolded the journalist and threatened to sue them for invading the actress's privacy. On the other hand, Muhan appeared annoyed because Mushui had wasted his time and then left the place. In the hotel corridor, Shuri confronted Mushui while showing Muhan the text message sent by Mushui to her. After that, Muhan appeared disappointed with his sister for deliberately trapping Shuri. However, instead of admitting her mistake and apologizing to Shuri, Mushui slammed Shuri's phone and insulted her by calling her a prostitute. Mushui then questioned Shuri and Zishan, who came together to the hotel, as if they knew her plan. But Muhan seemed to disregard it because he instead asked Mushui if Jing Jing was also involved in the plan. At that moment, Mushui told her brother that Jing Jing had no idea about the plan at all, but unexpectedly, Muhan's assistant arrived there dragging a woman in front of Muhan. The woman deliberately covered her face to hide her identity, but Shuri immediately took off the hat worn by the woman, revealing that the woman was Jing Jing. Although their cunning plan had been exposed, Jing Jing still pretended to be nice in front of Muhan, which only disgusted Muhan. Shortly after, Jing Jing tried to explain to Muhan that she came to the hotel because her friend informed her about Shuri coming to the hotel with Zishan. However, Shuri and Zishan apparently had evidence that Jing Jing was actually the one who devised the plan to trap them both and called the journalists to the hotel to create a scandal of their affair. Although Shuri had proven not to be cheating with Zishan, Mushui still believed Jing Jing's words and begged Muhan to trust Jing Jing more than Shuri. Upon hearing that, Zishan tried to defend Shuri, but it only made Mushui angry and she intended to slap Zishan. However, Zishan immediately grabbed Mushui's hand and told her that his face was insured and he would not hesitate to sue Mushui if she hurt his face. Meanwhile, Muhan, unwilling to listen to any explanations from Jing Jing and Mushui, called the journalists into the room and announced to everyone that he and Shuri were a loving couple. And therefore, rumors about Shuri having a romantic relationship with Zishan were lies. Muhan also emphasized that he would not hesitate to sue anyone who deliberately spread false rumors about his wife or took any actions that could harm Shuri. Not only that, Muhan also didn't hesitate to kiss Shuri in public to convince everyone that they were a truly loving married couple. When they arrived home, Muhan asked Shuri if she still insisted on getting a divorce. Shuri then replied that she wanted a divorce because Muhan only regarded her as a replacement for Mo Sha, who had passed away. Shuri also added that she might not divorce Muhan if he loved her, but Muhan instead mentioned Shuri's involvement in Mo Sha's death. Although Mu-Han seemed suspicious of Shi, he also admitted feeling jealous when Shi was close to other men, which also made him wonder about his own feelings towards Shi. As they were about to sleep, Mu-Han found Shi crying. Not wanting to see his wife sad, Mu-Han told her that he never accused Shi of being the one who killed Mo Sha. Nevertheless, Mu-Han was determined to uncover the truth behind Sha's death. Therefore, Mu-Han begged Shi to stay by his side as his wife and help him uncover everything. Mu-Han also asked Shi to keep her distance from any men, including Zishen, because he didn't want Shi to be involved in any scandal that could tarnish their family's reputation. The next day, Shi woke up to find Mu-Han sleeping while embracing her. For a moment, Shi admired Mu-Han's handsomeness, but then she remembered that it was the opening day of her boutique, so she quickly got out of bed. Surprisingly, Mu-Han suddenly reached for Shi's arm and kissed her, saying that the kiss was a gift from him. Some time later, Shi held a soft opening for her boutique with the help of her friend, Yi-Ming, and also Zishen, who came with a bouquet of flowers and a cake for Shi. At that moment, Zishen offered to invite his celebrity friends to support Shi at the event. But Shi replied that she wanted her boutique to become famous because people genuinely liked her fashion designs, not because of Zishen's influence. While Shi was handing out flyers to invite people to visit her boutique, surprisingly, Mu-Han came to see her. Mu-Han intended to use his influence to attract customers to Shi's boutique, but Shi refused and instead asked Mu-Han to help her distribute flyers to people on the street. At that moment, Mu-Han could have easily attracted people because he had a handsome face. However, Mu-Han indirectly made people afraid of him because of his cold attitude. Upon realizing this, Shi then instructed Mu-Han to wear a rabbit costume to hide his face. And this effort apparently succeeded in attracting the interest of pedestrians to take the flyers offered by Mu-Han. Shortly after, Shi appeared to be interviewing a young woman named Chi-Yen who came to the boutique to apply for a job as her assistant. Knowing that Chi-Yen was highly experienced in the fashion industry, Shi immediately hired her and instructed her to check several draft clothing designs that had been made by Shi. In the evening, Shi was seen spending time and drinking with her friends. After that, Shi, who was already drunk, was suddenly approached by some delinquents who tried to flirt with her. At that moment, they intended to harass Shi, but fortunately, Mu-Han arrived just in time to save her. Shortly after, Shi and Mu-Han finally arrived home, where Shi quickly tended to Mu-Han's injuries from the fight against the delinquents. After that, Shi appears to scold Mu-Han for recklessly fighting the thugs alone, but Mu-Han confidently states that he could easily defeat them. Shi smiles upon hearing this because she doesn't deny that Mu-Han is quite skilled in fighting, especially since he was a basketball athlete in high school. The scene then shifts to the past, showing Mu-Han playing basketball at school and several girls watching the game admire Mu-Han, including Shi. After the game, Mu-Han finds food on his table, and his classmates inform him that the food must have been left by his fans to support him. From the window, Mu-Han sees a girl walking towards the corridor, and he immediately chases after her, thinking she's the one who left the food on his table. The girl was Shi's half-sister, Mo Sha, who also admires Mu-Han. At that moment, Mu-Han thanks Sha for the food and asks about his uniform, assuming that Sha is the fan who often brings him food and also washes his uniform. In the present, Shi reveals that she's the one who always leaves the food on Mu-Han's table and washes his uniform after the game. Shi also mentions that Mu-Han's uniform suddenly went missing. And they eventually found out that Jing Jing intentionally removed the uniform because she felt jealous seeing Mu-Han and Sha being close. The next day, Mu-Han visits Shi in her office and appears upset because Shi is designing clothes for Zishen. Shi explains that she wants to make clothes for Zishen as a gesture of gratitude because Zishen has helped her a lot. Upon hearing that, Mu-Han instantly becomes jealous and sulks at Shi, so Shi promises to make a suit for Mu-Han at another time. After Shi leaves for work, Mrs. Shen meets Mu-Han and asks him to invite Jing Jing to dinner at their house. But Mu-Han refuses his mother's request, saying he's very busy, and then leaves. Shortly after, Jing Jing is seen visiting Shi's boutique and searching the place. Upon seeing this, Shi immediately tells Jing Jing to leave, but Jing Jing insults Shi, leading to a brief argument before Jing Jing leaves the place. Shi, still annoyed, then instructs her assistants to increase security and prohibit anyone from entering her office without her permission. On the other hand, Shi's assistant named Chi-Yen secretly contacts Mu-Han to report that Jing Jing entered Shi's office without permission. She informs him that Jing Jing looks very suspicious, and she thinks that Jing Jing may have malicious intentions to ruin Shi's business. Meanwhile, Jing Jing secretly steals Shi's clothing design drafts and shows them to her mother, Mrs. Gu. They apparently intend to destroy Shiyi's business because they deeply despise her. After that, Jing Jing and Mrs. Gu intentionally send a female public figure to become the first patron of Shiyi's boutique to sabotage the dress designed by Shiyi, where the woman deliberately inserts some needles into the dress and then blames Shiyi and her assistant for her injury caused by the needles. The woman then demands compensation from Shiyi while humiliating her. After the woman leaves, Qiyan apologizes to Shiyi for damaging the dress, but Shiyi doesn't mind at all and asks her assistant to give her some time alone. Knowing that Shiyi is upset, Qiyan contacts Muhan because she's afraid something bad might happen to Shiyi. That night, Shiyi goes to a bar to drink, hoping to relieve her stress from the problems she's facing. Shortly after, Muhan arrives to take the drunk Shiyi home. Muhan then instructs his assistant to leave first, while he walks home carrying Shiyi. Under the influence of alcohol, Shiyi expresses all the burdens on her mind, including the accusations made by everyone against her as the mastermind behind Shasha's death. Muhan then tries to reassure Shiyi by saying that he doesn't see her as a murderer. Upon hearing that, Shiyi appears happy and tries to kiss Muhan, but she ends up vomiting. In the following days, Shiyi, having faced her problems, manages to rise from the depths and intends to launch her latest clothing collection next month. After that, Shiyi thanks her team for their hard work and asks them to be even more enthusiastic to advance their business. Shortly after, Muhan arrives, and Shiyi introduces Muhan to her team as her husband. At that moment, Yiming looks happy to see the affection between Shiyi and Muhan, especially since Muhan is very attentive to Shiyi. After that, Muhan asks Shiyi about his birthday suit because Muhan will be celebrating his birthday next Saturday. Upon hearing that, Shiyi looks surprised because she hasn't prepared a birthday gift for Muhan yet. Before leaving, Muhan tells Shiyi that he will host a birthday party and will come to pick her up after work. That night, Muhan, who has just arrived home, is approached by Mushui, who shows him a pair of new earrings given by Jing Jing. Mushui also informs Muhan that she and Jing Jing went shopping all day to buy birthday gifts for Muhan, and Jing Jing even prepared a luxurious party to celebrate Muhan's birthday. However, Muhan shows no interest in hearing that and rushes to his room while holding Shiyi's hand. In the room, Shiyi asks Muhan about the reason why the whole family is very fond of Jing Jing. But, Muhan immediately denies it, saying that he doesn't like Jing Jing at all, although it doesn't change Muhan's thoughts about Shiyi possibly being involved in the accident that killed Shasha. Shiyi then asked Muhan about his reason for suspecting her even though the police had determined Shasha's death as an accident. Upon hearing this, Muhan revealed that Shasha's last words before she died were that Shiyi wanted her to die. Not long after, Muhan found Shiyi ironing the suit she was going to give to Zishan. Knowing this, Muhan immediately became jealous and took the suit, claiming it as his birthday suit. Muhan then asked Shiyi to put the suit on him, ignoring Shiyi who said that the size of the suit didn't fit Muhan's body size. However, Muhan didn't care at all about Shiyi's words and still claimed the suit as his birthday suit. Later, when Muhan was asleep, Shiyi secretly searched their room, looking for the suit hidden by Muhan. But her efforts were in vain, and instead, Shiyi woke Muhan up from his sleep. At that moment, Muhan thought Shiyi was trying to seduce him while he slept, so he immediately kissed her. The next day, Shiyi showed her latest works to her assistant and appeared proud because she had completed the works on time. Her assistant assumed that the works were a birthday gift for Muhan, but Shiyi chose not to explain further about it. In the following days, when Zishan was about to leave, he seemed disturbed because his fans were already waiting for him outside the building. When Zishan saw Shiyi among the crowd, he instructed the security personnel to allow Shiyi to enter the building. Apparently, Shiyi came to see Zishan because he had managed to gather information about Shiyi's father, Mo Qishan, who cunningly deceived Shiyi's mother to seize all of her mother's assets. Upon hearing this, Shiyi seemed very grateful to Zishan because Zishan had always helped her, even though she couldn't repay Zishan at the moment. However, Zishan seemed not to mind at all, and then he invited Shiyi for a ride on his motorcycle. Upon arriving home, Shiyi found her room in a mess as someone had rummaged through her wardrobe. Not only that, Shiyi also discovered that her party dress had been stolen, but Shiyi seemed to have anticipated it as she had secretly placed a hidden camera inside her wardrobe. Shortly after, Mrs. Shen and Mushui arrived and they said that Shiyi didn't need to attend Muhan's birthday party if her party dress was missing. It turns out, Mrs. Shen was the one who took Shiyi's party dress and instructed Jing Jing to dispose of it so that Shiyi couldn't attend Muhan's birthday party. Fortunately, Muhan arrived and revealed that he and Shiyi had intentionally installed a hidden camera there to prove that Shiyi was innocent. Muhan then called his assistant and instructed him to buy a new party dress for Shiyi. Not long after, Muhan's birthday arrived. While attending Muhan's birthday party, Jing Jing appeared upset because Muhan showed up with Shuri. Not only that, Shuri was also wearing a beautiful and elegant party dress, showing it off to Jing Jing and saying that it was a gift from Muhan, which only made Jing Jing more irritated. During the party, when Shuri was alone because Muhan had to meet his friends, Shuri saw Jing Jing and Muxue engaging in conversation as if they were planning something. Soon after, Muxue secretly poured something into a drink and gave the drink to Muhan. At that moment, Muhan told Muxue to respect Shuri because Shuri was his wife and her sister-in-law. Muhan also told Muxue to keep her distance from Jing Jing because Jing Jing had been manipulating Muxue and their mom to hate Shuri. However, Muxue seemed not to believe Muhan's words, and she then told Muhan that Shuri had been waiting for Muhan and had given the hotel room key to him. When Muhan was about to head to the hotel room, surprisingly, he instead met Shuri, who revealed that Jing Jing had locked her in the toilet for several hours. Fortunately, Shuri managed to get out, although she found that the party had ended. Upon learning that, Muhan immediately realized that Muxue intended to trap him, so he quickly put the hotel room key in his pocket, hiding it from Shuri. Shortly afterward, Shuri took Muhan to a place where she then gave him a birthday present. Shuri explained that the place was where Muhan had once saved her, as well as the place where she first fell in love with Muhan. Shuri then presented the birthday gift to Muhan and asked him to wear the clothing. After Muhan changed his clothes, unexpectedly, he pushed Shuri against the wall and passionately kissed her. At that moment, Muhan soon realized that he might have accidentally taken something that made him very passionate. Therefore, Muhan told Shuri to stay away from him because he didn't want to hurt her. Upon arriving home, Muhan had a headache and felt very feverish. Although Muhan had told Shuri to stay away from him, Shuri, who was so worried about Muhan, chose to let Muhan touch her so that he would no longer feel tormented by the effects of the drug. On the other hand, Jing Jing, who had arranged a plan to trap Muhan, ended up spending the night intimately with a man named Fu Mingchuan who resembled Muhan. The following days, Zishan invited Shuri to a party attended by top celebrities as a gratitude because Shuri had given him something. Upon arriving at the party, Shuri appeared slightly anxious because Muhan could show up at the party. Some time later, Muhan actually arrived there and seemed a little surprised to see Shuri coming to the party with Zishan. Muhan then approached them to take Shuri away, but Zishan quickly informed Muhan that Shuri was his partner at the party, and therefore, Shuri would stay with him. Shortly after, Muxue arrived and tried to corner Shuri, but Muhan reprimanded Muxue and told her to respect Shuri because she was his wife. Meanwhile, Zishan was upset because Muxue always spoke ill of Shuri. He then reprimanded Muxue, which sparked an argument between them because Muxue refused to accept the reprimand. On the other hand, Muhan took Shuri away from them and demanded an explanation from Shuri for attending the party with Zishan. At that moment, Shuri explained that Zishan only wanted to introduce her to his celebrity friends because some of his friends liked the clothes that she designed. Upon hearing that, Muhan felt relieved because he thought that Shuri deliberately wanted to make him jealous by going out with Zishan. Shuri then praised Muhan's appearance that night because Muhan was wearing his designed suit, and Muhan said that the suit fit him perfectly. Which made Shuri embarrassed because she seemed to know every detail and measurement of Muhan's body. While Muhan and Shuri appeared affectionate, Muxue, angered by their closeness, tried to incite Zishan by saying that Muhan actually loved another woman and that Shuri also preferred Zishan over her brother. However, before Zishan could respond, several journalists suddenly arrived and surrounded them, throwing several questions at Zishan, including questions about Muxue, whom they assumed to be Zishan's girlfriend. Knowing that Muxue wanted to become a famous celebrity, Zishan deliberately let Muxue answer the journalists' questions, then quickly left from there. Shortly after, Muhan and Shuri decided to leave, and as they left the place, Muhan accidentally made eye contact with Zishan, who was looking towards the window. Without hesitation, Muhan seized the opportunity to make Zishan jealous by kissing Shuri. After they left, Muxue approached Zishan and asked about Muhan's whereabouts. Muxue appeared upset when Zishan informed her that Muhan had left with Shuri, leaving her alone. Zishan, not wanting Muxue to go home alone, offered to escort Muxue home while giving her his jacket so that Muxue wouldn't feel cold. The following days, Shuri seemed excited because her brand became more popular after Zishan promoted it to his celebrity friends. Although Muhan was happy about it, he seemed a bit sad because Shuri chose to seek help from Zishan rather than from him. Muhan then said that Shuri could ask him for anything because he was her husband, and Shuri should rely on him for anything. Not long after, Muhan took Shuri to their old school to reminisce about the beautiful moments they had there. At that moment, Muhan talked about a girl he saved from thugs, and also a girl who always watched over him and secretly gave him food after matches. Muhan thought the girl was Sha Sha because he saw Sha Sha passing by the corridor shortly after finding the food on his desk. Surprisingly, the girl who had always admired and cared for him was not Sha Sha, but Shuri. After realizing this, Muhan apologized to Shuri because he had mistaken Sha Sha for the girl who loved him all this time. On the other hand, Mrs. Gu seemed annoyed because Shuri's brand had become popular and blamed Jing Jing for it. While her mother scolded her, Jing Jing was actually thinking about her own problem because Ming Chuan threatened to spread their photos together on the internet if she didn't give him a sum of money. That night, Jing Jing invited Mu Shui to a bar without Muhan's knowledge. Apparently, Jing Jing intended to trap Mu Shui by collaborating with Fu Ming Chuan so that Ming Chuan would stop threatening her. Upon knowing that Mu Shui was the daughter of a wealthy and respected family in the city, Ming Chuan took advantage of the opportunity to make Mu Shui drunk so that he could take advantage of her and force her family to marry them. While Mu Shui was having fun with Jing Jing and Ming Chuan, unbeknownst to them, Zishan was also there and secretly watching them. Zishan then called Shuri to inform her that Mu Shui was having fun with Jing Jing and their male friend. Upon knowing this, Shuri asked Zishan to continue watching over Mu Shui. On the other hand, Jing Jing told Ming Chuan and Mu Shui that she was going to the restroom for a moment, but in reality, Jing Jing went outside the bar and called Muhan to inform him that Mu Shui was having fun with some random guy. Jing Jing seemed happy because her plan succeeded, but unexpectedly, someone suddenly appeared behind her and abducted her. At the same time, Ming Chuan offered to escort Mu Shui to the restroom because she seemed so drunk. Upon seeing that, Zishan intended to follow them and say something to his female friend. When Ming Chuan and Mu Shui reached the deserted corridor, Ming Chuan tried to take advantage by touching Mu Shui's body. Fortunately, Zishan arrived just in time to save Mu Shui and hurriedly took her away from there, while his female friend stopped Ming Chuan by enticing him. Sometime later, Mu Shui finally woke up and found herself in a hotel room with Zishan. At that moment, Mu Shui thought that Zishan had taken advantage of her because she was now wearing hotel pajamas, indicating that someone had undressed her. Zishan immediately denied it and explained that Mu Shui had vomited due to excessive drinking, so he asked a female hotel employee to change Mu Shui's clothes. Shortly after, Muhan and Shuri arrived and they seemed very concerned about Mu Shui. Although Jing Jing had already set her up, Mu Shui still seemed to trust Jing Jing and blamed everything on Ming Chuan. While Shuri and Zishan wondered about the reason Jing Jing collaborated with Ming Chuan, Muhan took immediate action and ordered his assistant to bring Ming Chuan to him as soon as possible so that he could give him a lesson. The following day, Mrs. Shen informed Muhan about Jing Jing being caught on camera in an alley looking disheveled. Mrs. Shen then appeared sympathetic towards Jing Jing, but Muhan didn't care at all about Jing Jing because she meant nothing to him. Nevertheless, Mrs. Shen still asked Muhan to visit Jing Jing, but he firmly refused and revealed to his mother about Jing Jing's evil plan to harm Mu Shui. On the other hand, Jing Jing's father seemed very angry at his daughter because she had embarrassed their family. Mrs. Gu tried to calm the situation by saying that Jing Jing was a victim and asked her to explain what happened to her last night. At that moment, Jing Jing initially said that she didn't remember anything from that night, but she then blamed Muhan and told her parents that Muhan had taken advantage of her while she was drunk. After that, her parents immediately called Mrs. Shen to inform her of this because rumors about Jing Jing had spread throughout the city. Upon hearing this, Muhan refused to explain anything to his mother and then took Shuri away from there. They went to a room where Muhan explained to Shuri that he had collaborated with Zishan to spread rumors about Jing Jing. However, as Muhan was about to explain in more detail, his mother suddenly entered the room and informed them that Jing Jing was currently in the hospital because she had attempted to do the unthinkable. Mrs. Shen then urged Muhan to visit Jing Jing in the hospital, but Muhan firmly refused his mother's request. At that moment, Shuri said that she would visit Jing Jing in the hospital because regardless, Jing Jing was her half-sister. Because Shuri said she would also visit Jing Jing in the hospital, Muhan finally agreed to accompany her to visit Jing Jing. Upon arriving at the hospital, Mrs. Shen appeared very concerned about Jing Jing, while Jing Jing pretended to be a victim to garner sympathy from Mrs. Shen. On the other hand, Mrs. Gu tried to persuade her daughter by saying that Muhan still cared about him, but this immediately angered Muhan, who then ordered everyone to leave the room because he wanted to talk to Jing Jing alone. At that moment, Muhan realized that Jing Jing was just pretending, asked her to stop bothering Shuri because Shuri was his wife. However, Jing Jing insisted and said she was willing to be Muhan's mistress as long as she could be with him, but this only made Muhan more annoyed with Jing Jing. Knowing that Muhan intended to ignore her, Jing Jing then mentioned Sha Sha's death. But Muhan became even angrier and said that Jing Jing had only pretended all along and felt no guilt about Sha Sha's death. Han was furious, then left the room, ignoring Jing Jing, who begged him to stay with her. Shortly after, Han met Yi in the garden, where she surprisingly told Han that she wanted a divorce. At that moment, Han looked shocked to hear that and demanded an explanation from her, but Yi refused to explain anything to Han because she thought Han still loved Sha Sha. Sometime later, while Yi was busy with her work, she received information that Mrs. Gu's boutique was about to release a new collection of clothing. When Yi saw the collection, she was surprised because the clothes were identical to her own designs that she planned to release next month. At that moment, Qian commented that Yi would be accused of plagiarism if she insisted on releasing her collection, but Yi was determined to investigate further because some time ago, Jing Jing had broken into her office, and if they could prove that Jing Jing had stolen her design drafts, then she wouldn't be accused of plagiarism. Not long after, Yiming arrived and informed Yi that Jing Jing was engaged to Ming Chuan. Although this was good news for them, Yi wouldn't let Jing Jing get away with it so easily and instructed her assistants to find CCTV footage on the day Jing Jing visited their boutique. While Yi was in her office, Han came to see her and handed her several design drafts that Mrs. Gu's planned to showcase at a fashion show in a few weeks. Yi hurriedly examined the designs and found that most of them were designs belonging to her late mother, which had been stolen by Mrs. Gu's. After that, Yi was furious at Mrs. Gu because she not only caused her parents to separate but also stole her mother's designs. After that, Han pleaded with Yi to come home because he missed her very much. Han also told Yi that he had found out the truth behind Sha Sha's death, where Han revealed that Jing Jing was the mastermind behind the accident that killed Sha Sha and she had blamed Yi for Sha Sha's death. Knowing that they had a common enemy, Han invited Yi to work together to make Jing Jing confess that she was the one who killed Sha Sha. Additionally, Han added that they would discuss their marriage once they had successfully avenged Sha Sha's death on Jing Jing. Upon hearing that, Yi agreed to work together with Han because she also wanted to get revenge on Jing Jing and her mother for all the bad things they had done to her mother. The next day, Zishan invited Yi for lunch at a restaurant, where Zishan introduced Yi to a man named Lin Ku. He explained that Lin Ku used to be a college friend of Yi's mother, and Lin Ku added that he had met Yi when she was still a child. Surprisingly, Yi remembered Lin Ku as her mother's friend who always discussed fashion design with her mother. At that moment, Lin Ku explained that some time before Yi's mother passed away, she was very anxious about her clothing designs being stolen and plagiarized by others. Therefore, Yi's mother asked Lin Ku to keep these designs safe. Since Lin Ku had been abroad all this time, he only recently had the chance to come and see Yi to hand over the designs belonging to Yi's mother so that she could use them for the fashion show she would hold next month. Upon knowing this, Yi appeared relieved and happy because she had managed to obtain new clothing designs after all her designs were stolen by Jing Jing. Yi thanked Lin Ku because he was the savior who helped her when she had truly lost hope of holding the fashion show. On the other hand, Mu Shui seemed to meet Jing Jing at a restaurant where Jing Jing apologized to Mu Shui for the incident some time ago when she tried to trap her. Apparently, Jing Jing did not genuinely apologize to Mu Shui because she had devised a plan with her mother, intending to use Mu Shui to obtain all the information about the fashion show that Yi would hold. Knowing that Yi had managed to obtain new clothing designs, Jing Jing and her mother tried to steal these designs and embarrass Yi in front of the public by accusing her of plagiarism. Meanwhile, Yi appeared busy with her work, assisted by Lin Ku and her assistants, as she was determined to reclaim everything that belonged to her mother, which was taken by Fashion Gu. Knowing that Yi was working hard, Han came to visit her, bringing a cup of coffee while encouraging her. Shortly after, Zishan arrived and handed an invitation letter to Yi to attend the fashion show hosted by Mrs. Gu. Sometime later, Yi attended the fashion show accompanied by Zishan, where Mrs. Gu presented one of her best clothing designs, a luxurious dress worn by Jing Jing. Surprisingly, Yi also wore a similar dress and declared to everyone that Mrs. Gu had stolen her mother's clothing designs. Not only that, Yi also revealed that Mrs. Gu had also seized her father and all of her mother's assets, which immediately infuriated Yi's father, who wanted to slap Yi. At the same time, Lin Ku arrived and announced to everyone that all the clothing collections to be released by Mrs. Gu belonged to Yi's mother. Furthermore, Lin Ku showed evidence that Mrs. Gu had been stealing Yi's mother's designs to profit because Yi's mother was a highly talented fashion designer. At that moment, Jing Jing intended to defend herself, but Yi then showed a video recording of a woman who had evidence that Jing Jing was the mastermind behind the accident that killed Sha Sha. The woman's husband was apparently instructed by Jing Jing to kill Sha Sha, and feeling guilty for taking the life of an innocent girl. After that, the man wrote a will and provided evidence that Jing Jing had ordered him to kill Sha Sha, then decided to do the unthinkable. Everyone who witnessed the woman's confession was shocked, even Jing Jing's father, Mo Qishan, who appeared so angry that he slapped Jing Jing in front of everyone. Qishan then asked why Jing Jing would be willing to kill Sha Sha even though Sha Sha was her sister. In anger, Jing Jing said that she did it because Qishan loved Sha Sha more than her, and Muhan, the man she loved, also fell in love with Sha Sha. To prevent her daughter from being humiliated in front of everyone, Mrs. Gu begged Qishan to save Jing Jing because no matter what, Jing Jing was his daughter. However, Ming Chuan unexpectedly revealed that Jing Jing was not Qishan's daughter, showing the results of a DNA test proving that Jing Jing was not his biological daughter. Apparently, Muhan had secretly asked Ming Chuan to do the DNA test because he speculated that Jing Jing was not Qishan's biological daughter. As Muhan could see the resemblance between Sha Sha and Shi because they were Qishan's biological daughters, but Jing Jing did not resemble Qishan or her mother at all. Upon learning this, Qishan looked shocked because he had no idea that his wife had been lying to him for years. In the following days, Lin Ke decided to go abroad for some time as he planned to hold a fashion show in several countries. Shi then thanked Lin Ke for helping her uncover Mrs. Gu's lies, and Lin Ke promised to always support Shi like a father who would always support his daughter. After Lin Ke left, Shi then thanked Zishan for providing her with a lot of help. However, Zishan said that Shi should thank Muhan because he had always secretly helped Shi. Shortly after, Muhan appeared to meet Shi in a park, where Shi then thanked Muhan for all his help. Muhan didn't mind at all because Shi was his wife, and therefore, he tried to persuade Shi not to divorce him. Muhan then expressed that he had truly fallen in love with Shi and hoped they would stay together forever. However, Shi replied that she was afraid to maintain their marriage because of all the suffering she had experienced. Upon learning that, Muhan decided to respect whatever decision Shi made, saying that he would wait for her no matter how long because Shi was the only woman he loved. Surprisingly, Shi was only pretending because she then kissed Muhan and said that they would start everything anew as a loving husband and wife. The film ends by showing Shi finally finding happiness with Muhan, the man she loves, who now also loves her deeply. Moral lesson from the story: when you want to give someone a birthday present, it's best to make sure it's the right size. Or else you might end up with a suit that doesn't fit and accidentally got a kiss from someone.